Thanks for taking the time to listen to our latest content here on the Blood Red channel. Guy here with just a quick message. Do you want the very latest Liverpool FC news directly into your inbox? Well, then sign up to our daily LFC newsletter, which will bring you the breaking news and big events from around Anfield. To subscribe, just go to bit.ly/LFC newsletter. That's bit.ly/LFC newsletter, or click the link in the description of this podcast and pop in your email address. It really is that simple. That link once more, bit.ly/LFC newsletter. Well, thanks for your time, and on with the podcast.
This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
It's the Blood Red podcast. I'm Guy Clarke, and as we wait for the curtain to be raised, we've plenty to get stuck into the Friday afternoon. Alongside me, three of the Echo's finest, as we get set to talk Saturday's Community Shield with Arsenal, including giving our lineups, Klopp keeping tight-lipped on Gini's contract wish at Liverpool, plus what lays thought for Rhian Brewster. Oh, some player called Lionel Messi. To get into all of that, it's a pleasure to say we've the Echo's Liverpool correspondent, Paul Gorst, with us. Gorsty, how are you keeping?
Not bad, Guy, yeah. It almost feels a return to the glory days of last year, doesn't it? With the Friday press conference, a game on a Saturday, and we're back into the thick of it, but still a few weeks away from the real stuff.
Yeah, and albeit we've had to wait till the end of August to get to this stage. Dan Kay's also with us. Dan, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks, Guy. It's feeling a little bit wintry out there, bearing in mind it's only late August, but as Gorsty said, it's nice to be kind of slowly getting back into that weekend football rhythm and routine, and I think we're all looking forward to seeing some competitive action tomorrow with another trophy at stake.
Yeah, it certainly is the case. And Theo Squires is also along for the ride. Theo, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, mate. You changed rooms. It looks like a hostage video. Then where's your living room?
I'll get back at me here. Yeah, no, I'm just in the kitchen actually, up against a blank wall. Thought I'd change it up, and yeah, this is where we've come to and where we've settled on. Well, guys, we best then react to Jurgen Klopp's press conference that's been taking place this afternoon. Looking ahead, of course, to the Community Shield game. But so often is the case, Gorsty, that little of the chat's actually directly on the match involved. And kicking things off today, it was all about Lionel Messi.
Yeah. Sky wasn't who started the press conference off, and they always have a kind of agenda setter that they like to throw things at managers, and we see it all the time. And obviously, Lionel Messi and the future of him was his big topic. So, yeah, Klopp about it, and he actually said, well, he wants to win the Champions League, and this is his big obsession. You and your team is probably one of the favourites for that tournament next season. You know, why wouldn't you be in the hunt for Messi? And he said, I wouldn't name what Messi, which is understandable. You know, Lionel Messi for me is the greatest of all time. So you can see why he would be of interest. But, you know, Klopp quickly shuts down. He said the wages is a non-starter, even if he was to significantly take a huge pay cut on his, you know, reported, was it 900,000 a week or something silly like that? I think he earns 50 million per year after tax. Unfortunately, that's not a kind of air that Liverpool can go to, which is a shame. But he said if he comes to the Premier League with Manchester City, you know, it'll be great to see him in the Premier League, but that will make Liverpool's job harder, and that's probably stating the obvious. But I still probably think Messi stays at Barcelona, to be honest.
Yeah, it is an interesting one, and one that's obviously engulfed the agenda for the whole of world football. Plenty of podcasts talking about it all week. Dan, what are your thoughts on the whole Messi situation? And did you let yourself get any way excited about if he may end up at Anfield at all?
To be honest, that guy, I was very much in the camp where I don't particularly want him at Anfield. Not now, not at the age he is. If it had been 5 years ago, that's a different story. But it's clear that, you know, obviously things have gone badly awry at Barcelona over a number of years. This isn't just one bad season. This has been coming for a while. I would kind of, you know, endorse what Gorsty said then, that it would not surprise me one bit if he does actually end up staying at Barcelona. Yeah, there's a lot of politics within Spanish football, particularly obviously with presidential elections and that type of thing. Obviously, we saw one of the prospective Barcelona candidates alleging that he'd had tentative talks with Jurgen Klopp's representatives earlier this week. So if I was a betting man, I kind of probably would expect that he may end up actually staying at the camp now. But I mean, he's an unbelievable player, one of the greatest to have played the game without any question at all. I was privileged to be in the new camp last May to see him spank that free kick past Alisson. I remember the first time I saw him in the flesh, 2007, when Liverpool played in the 16 of the Champions League. And even though he was only really at the start, I think he'd only been the team a year or two then, I just always remember kind of like the sense of electricity almost like a jolt went through everyone in the stadium when he picked the ball. Knew this was a very, very skilled footballer. But, you know, if we know one thing about Jurgen Klopp and the Liverpool team, that he is built into, you know, the champions of England, champions of the world, you know, like not quite in champions of Europe anymore, is that it's all the team. And aside from the financial aspects and how that would complicate matters in terms of wage structure and all that, I just think putting him into a superstar player like that in the dressing room would fly in the face, really, of everything that Klopp has preached and has put into practice over the last 5 years. So I know we did have a little bit of a debate on the site, didn't we, a couple of days ago, with Joe arguing that we shouldn't sign him and Kiva argued that we should. And loath though I am to agree with our despotic leader, I had to agree with Joe that, you know, for me, I wouldn't want to see him at Anfield now. The ego's massive. And to be honest, there's a part of me she wouldn't mind seeing him go to Manchester City, because I'm not sure what their team needs right now is another massive ego. Of course, he'll score some brilliant goals and be involved in some great moments, but will he make the difference in terms of the gap they need to catch Liverpool? I'm not so sure. So really interesting to see how it pans out. But no, he's not one I want to see in a red shirt myself.
Yeah, Dan alluded to it there, Theo. Jurgen Klopp did hint it would be nice to see Messi maybe in the Premier League if he were to join Man City. Is that him being polite? Because I have to say that if I were a Liverpool manager or supporter looking at it, I wouldn't want Messi anywhere near Manchester City.
I think it's one where he is just being polite. It's one where I think everyone is realising what a special talent Messi is and how privileged we are to see him play. If he goes to Manchester City, unlike Dan, I think it would make a big difference. I reckon that's enough. Like, granted, Barcelona, they had the best year, but they've been in a poor state for a number of years now. And how many times have they won the Liga? And he's basically carried them through. If he went to a Manchester City, he'd have the same impact. You look at the impact, say, Cristiano Ronaldo's at Juventus. It doesn't matter that they're in their early mid-30s. They are two of the greatest players the planet has ever seen. And they will make an impact no matter how old they are. They would be the best players on the pitch. But wage-wise, it just can't happen when he's probably he's on nearly $1 million a week. Liverpool, highest earners, you say, that's going to be 200,000 roughly, if we're guessing. And you'd think the likes of Salah, Van Dijk, they're going to have much higher earner clauses in those. It's just not visible from that point of view. But like the two have just said, I think it's a power play from Messi. He knows how much power he's got at that club, how much control he's got at that club. He's not been happy with the Champions League exits. He's not been happy with some of the signings, the choice of managers. He doesn't get on with the president. There was a report yesterday, actually, from the president saying he would resign right now if Messi came out and publicly said that he was going to stay. The fans obviously want him to stay. And it's probably just going to be one of those with the elections coming next year that Messi gets what he wants. He's not going to... Like, if Barcelona lost Messi, it would alienate that entire fan base. And while they could then use those monies to probably rebuild the squad the way they need to, he's just got too much power for them to lose. He knows exactly what he's doing. On a lesser scale, we've seen it in the league before, haven't we? With Wayne Rooney, a couple of times he threw his toys out the pram to get what he wanted at Manchester United, and it worked. If Rooney can do it, Messi certainly can do it.
Yeah, I have to say, personally, I'm not so sure on this one. I think maybe it might be him actually wanting to agitate for a move. Obviously, after that Liverpool first leg, he spoke about how he wanted, obviously, the Champions League to return to Barcelona. Didn't happen, as you say. Bartomeu has said if Messi says I'll stay, he'll resign. But things not playing out. That one's not going to go away anytime soon, though. And of course, another issue that seems to very much be rumbling under and beginning now to rear its head is Gini Wijnaldum's contract and what's going on there. Jurgen Klopp was also asked about that today.
He was, and he basically just said, didn't he, it's a situation between the club and the player, and it'd be remiss of them to kind of publicly discuss that, which is what you'd expect them to say. I think you probably might have got more out of Jurgen Klopp if you were being asked how important is he to you, because he played 37 times last season. I think he played more minutes than... I know he played more minutes than any other Liverpool midfielder. More minutes than any other midfielder in the Premier League, I think. So he's obviously one of the first names on the team sheet. So Klopp doesn't want to lose him, you'd imagine. So how much does Klopp want to keep him? What's the issue behind the scenes? There's no active talks at the moment. We found that out recently. So you would have to assume that, Wijnaldum's value is dwindling by the day and Liverpool aren't going to be offering him a new deal. So does that mean he's going to walk away at the end of next season on a free transfer, similar to Emre Can? Or Liverpool going to look to cash in this summer? I think it's a difficult situation for Klopp and Liverpool. I think my guess would be they don't try to sell him this summer and try to get him a new contract. But if not, they're prepared for him to leave on a free transfer next summer.
Yeah, Theo, I'll come to you on this because you did mention it actually a couple of weeks ago. You were going to say, I'll call it now. I think the same as what happened with Emre Can will happen with Wijnaldum. And at the moment, the club do seem to sort of be at deadlock, stalemate in terms of any talks. Gorst saying no active talks underway right now.
Yeah, I think it's been that situation for a while now. Liverpool, obviously, they suspended contract and transfer talks when lockdown started. And whilst we've seen, I think Curtis Jones, he got his new deal recently. Obviously, they've signed Tsimikas. There's been no attempt at the moment to open talks with Gini Wijnaldum. It's an interesting one because he's been so vital for Liverpool ever since he joined. And he's had this role built for him sort of thing where he could easily be a squad player that you could bring off the bench to be, he's your attacking midfielder, he's your holding midfielder, whatever. But that's not something that really appeals to him. He wants to be starting games. And I think the writing's been on the wall for him for a little while. And the fact that Liverpool, they brought in Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, they brought in Naby Keita. You think if you've got all your players fully fit, firing, Wijnaldum's probably one in the midfield who loses out to one of those two. Everyone wants to see Naby Keita at his best. That is what you expect to be the change. And it might be for Wijnaldum now. He's looking at it and thinking, well, he's won the Champions League. He's won the Premier League. He doesn't need to achieve anything else at Liverpool. He's got the big trophies. He's got the medals that he came for. He can go now and achieve whatever he wanted. But we've seen the links with Barcelona reuniting with Ronald Koeman. We know how well he's done for the Netherlands. Every single international break, we've been saying, why don't we see that Gini Wijnaldum for Liverpool? But to then go and do it, say, at Barcelona, at Camp Nou, it would be a dream move for any player. He'd get his big payday. And then we also know all the links that what it could mean for Thiago Alcantara, where if Wijnaldum goes, Liverpool would maybe be freed up to make a move. Wijnaldum. It's one of those where, when he said with Emre Can, he didn't want to lose him a year early because you wouldn't be able to replace him and get someone better for what you could do. And I think it's going to be the same with Wijnaldum. But if you lock now and you sold now, the chances are, unless you're guaranteed you're getting Thiago, you're not getting a better replacement there. He's going to be one of the best players you can have for this season coming ahead. And then it's just a case of if Barcelona came in and say, offer you 20 million, do you take it now? Or would you rather have him for the season? If you could go Thiago, like for like. But it's an interesting one to keep an eye on because as soon as Klopp was asked the question, I was watching it, I was thinking, this is exactly the same as what happened with Emre Can. It's the exact same sort of answer. If he is still here when the week closes, another 12 months of that, with Klopp playing it down every week, saying, it can still be sorted or whatever. And then only when the season comes to its end, he said, we've known for months actually that he was leaving.
Yeah, how important actually, Dan, is Gini Wijnaldum for Liverpool? And maybe did they even miss a trick if you go back to the Barcelona second leg game? He started on the bench. They've spoken about how he was angry. He was on the bench, came off, of course, and scored a couple of goals. Was that maybe the moment Liverpool should look to tie him down? As I say, how important is he? Because Gorsty's illustrated just how many minutes he played last season. He's a trusty player for Jurgen Klopp.
I think he's a hugely important player, and I've said a number of times this. So, in my opinion, getting his signature on a new deal would be one of the most important deals Liverpool could strike this summer. Obviously, we've reached the point now, getting towards the end of August, where he hasn't signed a new deal. And, obviously, we know the window's open until the first week of October, so another week or so. And you would imagine the market will start to move a little bit quicker as the season happens, as the season gets underway. There'll inevitably be a couple of teams will have a few results, and there'll be a little bit of panic button going on. I think one of the reasons why he's such an important player for Liverpool is his versatility. I've used the term factotum about him before, and that you can almost put him in any position of that midfield to do a decent job. And that Barcelona semi-final really kind of provides a good example for it, because if you remember in the first leg at Camp Nou, I think I'm right in saying Firmino was already struggling with that injury that basically kind of ruined the season. So Wijnaldum actually started the game in an advanced, basically in the Firmino role as part of the front three. didn't have that bad a game. Obviously, it looks terrible on the face of it because Liverpool lost still and all intents and purposes were out. It was a surprise, I suppose, to a certain degree that Klopp chose not to start him for the second leg, bearing in mind how many players he was already without that night. Salah, Firmino, Naby Keita. You might also argue it was a bit of man management because obviously Wijnaldum was so wound up that when he came off the bench at half-time, he scored those 2 unforgettable goals in the space of 120 seconds early in the second half at Liverpool level. So, you know, to be honest, I think I'm in the same camp as the other two lads. I think, sadly, he is probably coming towards the end of his Liverpool career. I think it will come to, unless something changes drastically, what will happen, what happened with Emre Can will happen again. And it definitely makes, if you're not going to get top money for him and you're not going to be able to get in a top class replacement, it absolutely makes sense to keep it until the end of the season. You know, in the early days of the Bosman ruling, Liverpool was stung quite badly, weren't they, with Steve McManaman walking away for free, Michael Owen walking for $8 million, which was, to all intents and purposes, almost a free, bearing in mind his market value at the time. But Liverpool paid $25 million, I think, for Wijnaldum in the summer of 2015. No,
2016. Yeah.
16. So if he was to leave in the summer of 2021 for a free, I think it would be impossible to say that Liverpool haven't had value for money from him over that last 5 years. Even if personally, I just think he's a cracking player. He seems a really important part of the squad and the dressing room, and I would love somehow to be organised and arranged that could stay on. But as Theo pointed out, you couldn't really necessarily begrudge him a move. He's won everything there is to Liverpool. He's getting to that kind of age, 29, 30, where he might be looking for one more challenge. I wouldn't begrudge it, but I hope we get one more good last year rather than a couple more medals in his cabinet.
Yeah, so he's got 1 year left on his deal, Gorst, and I think a lot of people listening to this will probably be screaming at their headphones or their car radios, however they're listening, Thiago Cantara. Those mentioned his name, and I think a lot of people would say, well, move Wijnaldum on, bring in Thiago. It's logical, but they're not really similar players, are they? Thiago's a brilliant passer and a playmaker and distributor from midfield. Gini Wijnaldum, as Dan alluded to, he slots into many different roles and is a multifunctional player for Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah, he does a lot of work off the ball, doesn't he? That almost goes a little bit unnoticed by people who don't necessarily think he's a top draw player. I think they are different types, aren't they? Thiago, somebody who looks to get on the ball, dictate the tempo with an incredible passing range. He can play any type of pass. Wijnaldum is someone who shuttles around, closes the spaces for the opposition, make sure that Liverpool's defence is watertight. And when he gets it, he gives it and plays it quite simple to the front three and to the fullbacks. And he's not a typical six in the way that Firmino is. Certainly someone who does his fair share and more of defensive work and has massively contributed to Liverpool having the best defensive record in the Premier League over the last 2 seasons. On the face of it, it sounds simple, doesn't it? Sounds Wijnaldum and bringing Thiago, but it doesn't necessarily work that way. And would it kind of unbalance Liverpool's first team possibly at a time when you look at Keita, he had a massive impact post-lockdown, and you're looking at him thinking now's his chance to finally kickstart his own career and become a mainstay in that midfield. So it's a tough one to find an act that Liverpool need to get right at midfield because it's so important to kind of how they play and how they operate.
Yeah, staying with you, Goldstein, and we'll go around and all have an opinion on this because a thought just sort of occurred to me. And listening to Jurgen Klopp's press conference today, he spoke about the transfer market, but also spoke crucially about developing players within the club and thinking if Wijnaldum does leave, of course, he came through in Holland at Feyenoord. He was an attacking midfield player, still is when he plays for Holland. Just thinking, would there be scope for a player like Curtis Jones to learn from Gini Wijnaldum and take on that role? He's been playing in the midfield for Liverpool in pre-season. He's, of course, an attacking player. He's got those similar attributes in terms of ball retention and being able to shuttle around the pitch. He's certainly a mobile player.
He is, but what I'd say, I think at the moment is Curtis Jones has probably just got to focus on his own game, his natural game, and one that he's trying to kind of impose. I wouldn't be too concerned with trying to give him a new role, a new kind of skill set at this stage of his career. He's only just 19, is he? Coming into his first real proper season as a Liverpool first teamer. So I think he just needs to kind of left to his own devices and focus on what he's good at and improve that for now. And then when he matures a little bit in 2, 3, 4 years' time, then you can kind of look at it and think, well, can he add another string to his bow in the midfield area? But for now, I wouldn't be worried about turning Curtis Jones from an 8 to a 6 per se, or he's even played in the front three for the under-23s, played on the left or the right. So I just focus on him playing his national game for now.
He's going to be a bit down this season, though, Curtis Jones. He's going to be chomping at the bit, and whatever Jurgen Klopp asks him to do, I'm sure he'll say, if Jurgen Klopp says jump, he'll say how high. He'll be desperate to play many games for this season.
Absolutely, and I think he's already shown that in pre-season. I had the task of reporting on the opening friendly last Saturday against Stuttgart, and he started the game. It was a very strong starting 11. He put 2 different for each half. But I'm pretty sure that that must have been one of the strongest starting 11s Liverpool have named for an opening pre-season friendly in a long, long time, if ever. Apart from Alexander Arnold's got a minor injury, so he was at home. So Nico Williams was at right back. But apart from Curtis, it was basically the first choice, a full-strength team, the front three, the rest of the back five, and Keita, Fabinho alongside them in midfield. And Curtis was as good as any player on the pitch. I mean, it seems strange to say in such a short time since the last season, but he seems to almost like have filled out a little bit during the summer. I maybe had this perception in my head of him when he came through. He's kind of like he's more of an attacking player. He's always going to be, on the free, almost the link between the midfield and the attack. But he was all over the pitch, linking the play with the back four and doing his tracking back and getting his tackles in. And I think there's every chance he could go on to become as versatile a player as Gini Wijnaldum. But I would very much doubt that the Gini Wijnaldum at 19 was the Gini Wijnaldum that we've seen at Liverpool over the last few years. That kind of experience and power around the pitch is only achieved through years of playing, and taking the knocks and learning from your mistakes. So I think Gorst is absolutely right. It's important that Curtis, keeps his eye, keeps focused, doesn't start trying to become, the next big thing. Listens to the good coaches and the advice from, the senior players as well around him. And he just, it's always great to see Goucher in the team, isn't it? But he seems to understand what a massive opportunity he has, and he seems, touch wood, to be determined to make the very best of it. And I think we're all really looking forward to seeing how that.
Yeah, certainly. Maybe then, if it's not Curtis Jones, we don't know obviously how the market will play out for Liverpool. Jurgen Klopp said as much himself in recent days and echoed that today in his press conference. So looking elsewhere in the squad then, is there more bonus this season then, even more than we've already spoken about, on Naby Keita to step up and ensure that he can be a regular option for Jurgen Klopp to turn to? We've spoken about the amount of minutes that Gini Wijnaldum played, or even someone maybe like Marco Grujic, if he does find a move away from Liverpool, to try and work his way into the plans.
Yeah, it's one where you look at it, Liverpool have so many midfield options and they have got different skills, different capabilities. You can throw James Milner in that as well. Now he's not an option at left back so much. But I think for Liverpool, it's always been the way they've progressed under Jurgen Klopp. You think when he first came through, it was give the ball to Coutinho and he will unlock defences. It's all about playing through him. When he left, it was that adapting to the fullbacks with Trey, Andy Robertson, and seeing what they do. And whilst it's always been effective, whether it was Coutinho or the fullbacks, Liverpool, to an extent, have become predictable. And teams know what they're going to do. And whilst it's very hard to stop it, we do occasionally see it getting stopped. Atletico Madrid is probably the most obvious one from the past season. And when you look at Liverpool's midfielders, whilst they've got these different talents, Jurgen Klopp never goes to them, right, he's going to unleash them and have the full sit deep. And it's one where they have to do this horses for horses sort of role. And it's how he's pretty much always approached it. Like we've seen Jordan Henderson throughout his Liverpool career, how talented he is, going box to box. But for however, 2 years, he was good number 6, wasn't he? And Klopp realises that with his midfield, they are going to have to be that engine room so he can get the best of his team elsewhere. But when you've got players like Naby Keita, I think when he came, it was before Jurgen Klopp fully unleashed the fullbacks. And it was the hope that he could be this crew link in midfield, running forward, unlocking fences, setting up goals. And we've seen glimpses of it. If he had been at his best for the 2 years he'd been at Liverpool, if we'd seen the player we'd seen in Germany, who knows what Liverpool's game can be. They could have a very different style, or they could just alternate from one to the other. Marco Grujic is one where you think if there's an offer, Liverpool probably need to sell just because he's not going to get the game time, is he? When they've got so many options. And who would you rather give the minutes to, Curtis Jones or Marco Grujic? And then it's just what Jurgen Klopp wants to do going forward. Does he want to bring in a playmaker like Thiago, or does he want to keep it pretty similar as it is? Blood Curtis Jones into the team. Obviously, we'll have the debate every season. Should be in midfield. He's got so many options there. He's got quite a few decisions to make.
Yeah, so we've spoken then on Lionel Messi. We've spoken about Gini Wijnaldum. Let's then look ahead to Saturday's game with Arsenal at Wembley. The Community Shield, Gorst, one man who I suppose has been pushing through pre-season to stick around at Liverpool first and foremost, but maybe even be pushing for a start in this game is Rhian Brewster.
Yeah, Rhian Brewster, yeah. Klopp was asked about him, wasn't he? He had no decision being taken on his next step. As many as 6 Premier League clubs have actually contacted Liverpool about him, and the 3 relegated clubs from last season as well. So he's got, a host of clubs who are after him because of his impressive second half of the season at Swansea, where he scored 11 and 22. Sheffield United, it was reported yesterday that they're kind of in pole position, but I was told last night that while they're desperate for him, Liverpool are kind of relaxed about the situation and haven't yet made the decision. And that was something that the Klopp said himself today. So I think, there's still a good while, isn't it, before the transfer window closes, and you could have a scenario where Rhian Brewster plays 2 or 3 games in the Premier League this season before making the move to someone else on loan for the season. I think long-term his future's at Liverpool. Don't think there's any question that Liverpool have had massive hopes for him for 3 or 4 years, and the fans just started to kind of mature and develop. I'd like to see him go on loan for the season. It's a big question as to who was kind of best suited to have him at this stage, but I think seeing him maybe in the Premier League and seeing how he gets on and improves as a footballer would be interesting to see. But for now, no decision has been made.
Yeah, no, he's definitely an interesting one. And I suppose even before lockdown and everything like that, the decision had been made that the Premier League wouldn't shut its transfer window before the first game of the season, as has been the case for the last few seasons, Dan. And I suppose then for Rhian Brewster, really going off what Gorsty says, he's in the situation. It's the ideal situation for Liverpool to be able to take a look at him, and then maybe come early October, they can potentially move him on loan to another Premier League side.
Yeah, it's a scenario that really can kind of suit all parties, really. While there is this kind of uncertainty for a variety of matters within the transfer market, it makes sense for Klopp to have as many options at his disposal as he may need. And then as we get into September and into early October, you'd imagine things would start to then become a little bit clearer. I would certainly hope to see him get a run out at Wembley tomorrow. It's a shame it's behind closed doors. I mean, I've always been quite fond of the Charity Shield. The first time I ever went to Wembley was the 1992 one when Liverpool lost 4-3 to Leeds and Eric Cantona got a hat-trick. Some people may kind of turn their nose up at the Charity Shield, but at the end of the day, if you're in it, it's because you've done something special the year before. But it's the, quote, traditional curtain raisers to the season, but everyone's aware of it, everyone watches it, everyone wants to be in it. And it's, I really enjoyed the trip. The trip to Wembley last year when Liverpool took on Manchester City. I felt it was an important day in Liverpool's season, really, and in the journey of the last couple of years when, after a poor first half, Liverpool really gave City a bit of a batter in the second half. Equalised, should really have won the normal time. And even though they lost the penalty shootout, I remember walking out the ground feeling really hopeful and optimistic and kind of almost taking it as a moral victory. So it's disappointing for us as fans, for Brewster, and for everybody involved that it will be behind closed doors. But it's a big opportunity for Rhian if he gets on the pitch to show again what he can do. Took his 2 goals in midweek against Salzburg superbly well. And I think it probably would, there's a part of me, Klopp's been talking about for a good few years now, and there's a part of me that would like to see him kept on. But I guess, the likelihood is, if Salah, Mane and Firmino will stay fit, how much is he going to play? I did notice in one of the interviews he gave after the Salzburg game on Tuesday, he spoke about how beneficial his loan spell at Swansea had been for him. And particularly made reference to kind of like playing adult football. And the difference between you can play as much as 23s as you want, but that difference between having 30-year-old sweaty, hairy arse defenders kicking you up in the air. That's how you really mature as a player. And I think we've already seen an element of that from him. But I would hope it, no disrespect to Swansea, I hope it would be a step up from that, whether that's a Premier League club or a Bundesliga club. I think, to hopefully maintain his upward curve of development, I think he needs to, be pushed up a level, because so far every time he has pushed up, he's responded.
Yeah, and we were very intrigued as to how he'd get on at Swansea, Theo, and make no bones about it, his goals put Swansea into the playoffs at the end of last season. He did score in the playoff semi-final, but even looking at since he's come back to Liverpool, he's got the 3 goals in 2 matches during pre-season. Divock Origi has been injured and not been able to be chosen. I just wonder, just maybe, is even sneaking up pecking order and beyond a player like Divock Origi for offering something in that central striking position.
Well, we've seen it before, haven't we, when Liverpool's striking pecking order has changed across the season, from Danny Ings, Nick Solanke, Daniel Sturridge, Divock Origi coming in from the cold, and they've all put in these performances to get their chance, but they've just not shown enough to break up the front 3. And who is going to be able to break up the front 3? That Divock Origi had the best season last year. You wanted to see him push on after his heroics the year before, but then it's when the front 3 are available every week, every game, barely missing any football. He pretty much being shorn, wasn't he? Out wide, he was very rarely to opportunities central. And it's going to be one of those where, with Rhian Brewster, you don't really want him to be in that role where he's just getting scraps, because when he's such a young lad, it's all about momentum. He needs to keep on and building. So for me, on a toss of a coin, if you keep him, you have to play him. You have to give him opportunities, because he's full of confidence now. He's shown his ability. I think it's not just for Swansea, it's his uncompetitive record for Liverpool. 7 goals in 8 games now. He scores goals when he gets chances. So to get chances, he needs to play football. If you look to not this season, next season, well, then you'll have the Africa Cup of Nations. You will get opportunities there in the frame. The front 3, they're much closer to 30. You have to look to the future, and he is very much going to be part of that future. Origi's own future, it's up in the air. If we weren't in this pandemic, then maybe he would have been moving on this summer. And it's all, there is a natural progression there, natural replacement in Rhian Brewster. And it's, you look at him, well, is he best staying at Liverpool, playing the Liverpool way, having Klopp's arm around his shoulder and learning that way? Or do you want him to just go out, play for week in, week, score goals week in, week out? I think it varies from player to player and their own mentalities. So if we look back to January, Curtis Jones, he was being linked with a low move away, but he's a Scouse lad. He's always wanted to play for Liverpool, and they took the decision to him, and that looks to him the world of good. But then we've seen Rhian Brewster go out to Swansea, and that's done him the world of the good. It just depends on each individual player. Brewster, I think like most young strikers, he needs to have a bit of an ego about him. He's got that. He'll want to play game. He won't want to sit on the bench. It's part of the reason why he did out on loan in January last year. He's had that taste of training with Liverpool, and now having had that taste of playing games, he's not going to want to go back to just being a bench warmer. When substitution look like it's not going to be 5 players now, still hard to see him getting the opportunities he wants in his favoured position. So Liverpool, if they do loan him out, they need to get it right. We've seen in the past when they haven't. So Sheffield United, of course, he's mentioned there. I think back to a couple of years ago, Ben Woodburn barely got sniff with them. And you think, well, they play the wing-backs formation, don't they? The 3-5-2. Well, Liverpool never play that formation. If Brewster's up front for Liverpool, he's up front in his own. So it needs to be a move where it's going to be like for like. So if you're saying go free this season elsewhere, it's at least a system and a style that is similar to what he'll be back playing when he is back at Liverpool, whether that's this year, next year, whenever.
Yeah, interesting. And you mentioned Sheffield United. Of course, they often 2 strikers. They have players around the place. David McGoldrick, Ollie McBurney and Billy Sharp, who I think each one of those, maybe Rhian Brewster could learn something off of. Of course, he is still a young player and will be developing and learning. But let's talk more then about the game. Gorst, Dan alluded to it before, how coming away from Wembley last year and the Manchester City game, it really did feel, as much as we perhaps deride the Community Shield, that it really did set the template for Liverpool through the course of the season. They didn't get the win, they didn't win the match, but they saw what they were up against in Manchester City and realised we can't let up even from the start, and of course started last season so well.
Yeah, exactly. I remember watching that game last year, particularly the second half, thinking that Liverpool hadn't made any signings as European champions, and there was a few question marks over whether that was the right policy, but think just watching that second half, Liverpool absolutely hammered City and should have won the game, really. They were beaten on penalties and were quite unfortunate, but it was maybe a little tonic that made you think, okay, well, Liverpool aren't, not a busted flush by any means, and they're ready to go again, and so they proved over the course of the season. So I'm thinking it might be a similar situation tomorrow. Once again, Liverpool have really moved into the market, and people are questioning whether they can carry on. And we hear this phrase "standing still," which to me is laughable, really, because if Liverpool are standing still, 97, 99 aren't they, and I'll win them the league. But if they do kind of, as we expect, there are no massive incumbents, then this is the squad that's going to try and retain the title. And I think tomorrow against a decent Arsenal side who kind of got to win the sale, and they would winning the FA Cup, and Arteta's got his blueprint. I think if Liverpool put on a decent show and a good performance and win the game, then that'll kind of stand out a little bit of a statement to show that, sign whoever you like, but we're the team.
Yeah, Dan, what do you make coming up against Arsenal? Obviously finished well off the pace in the Premier League last season, but since they beat Liverpool in July at the Emirates, Mikel Arteta has spoken about how that gave them confidence. They beat Manchester City and Chelsea to win that. And Mikel Arteta does seem to have them set up in quite a stubborn way. It does seem they play with an intensity that, even if you're saying this is a third pre-season friendly, it is a step up along the road from Stuttgart to Red Bull Salzburg, then maybe to Arsenal. I don't think Jurgen Klopp could probably have handpicked a better side, given he'll have 2 weeks until the first game with Leeds after.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it will certainly be a step up from Salzburg on Tuesday, and obviously we saw in the first half that Salzburg caused Liverpool a fair few problems, and were 2-0 up at half time and could have been in front by more. I think Arsenal have been pretty impressed really since it's certainly the latter period of lockdown. I think I'm right in saying the first game after was a fairly insipid 3-0 defeat away at City, and I do remember seeing Arteta's interview afterwards, and he wasn't ranting and raving, but he was quietly seething, and you could tell that there's, you'll know more than us, obviously, Guy, but there's a lot of issues behind the scenes at Arsenal in terms of ownership and finance, and I think they're looking a third or fourth year without Champions League football, which obviously doesn't make Arteta's rebuilding job any easier. However, I think he's shown in his short time in the job so far, he's really done all that could have been expected of him now. To have, you can argue about beating Liverpool when they did. Liverpool had won the league weeks before and were arguably certainly mentally on the beach. But to win the FA Cup by beating City and by beating Chelsea, some years you can the FA Cup by beating no one. But they beat to the size of the country to do that, and they will be very much looking at tomorrow as an opportunity of them putting a marker down to say, well, this isn't the kind of the fairly weak-willed arse that the Premier League has seen over the last 5 to 10 years. This is a new broom. It's a slightly different dynamic for Liverpool, whereas last year, Liverpool were going in against the champions, were second favourites. Almost Liverpool were looking to put the marker down to say, well, all right, you might have beat us by 1 point last year, but we're coming for you again. It's a slightly different dynamic this year. Also, as well, the fact that there's a 2-week break. I think Klopp will want to win. Of course he will. He'll want a good performance. He'll want goals. He'll want the trophy on the cabinet. But I think more than anything else, he will look. I don't think I'd be surprised if Liverpool play with quite the same intensity in various patches of the game, just because of the different kind of context to the match. And we may well see that in a team selection. He's named the front three have started both friendlies so far. It's a big call to say that Brewster or Origi might start it together. It wouldn't surprise me if Klopp, bearing in mind as well the players are about to go off on international duty, if he did just mix things up a little bit, and obviously there'll be a number of. Is it 5 subs tomorrow? Do we know?
I think you can have the community shield.
Yeah. So again, that gives him the opportunity to kind of utilise his squad maybe a little bit more than he would do in a league game. So it should be fascinating.
Yeah, it certainly be. Theo, yours on the importance of the community shield. I was all thumbs and fingers trying to work this one out, so I might be wrong, but by my math, 6 of the last 20 matches played, 6 of the winners in the last 20 since the turn of the millennium have gone on to the champions, and 4 of the losers in the Community Shield have gone on to win it. A lot of those games, of course, have gone to penalties. Do you think it is a significant game psychologically or in any way, or given it Arsenal, who Liverpool face, who quite frankly, they're not going to be challenging the league title, it doesn't really make a difference?
It was a very important game mentally last year. When you look at how Liverpool put in their best ever campaign and finished 1 point short of the title, it was a chance, had not made any signs, to go up against City again, knowing that you weren't going to be at your best because it was that first game, to see what you're really about, to silence some of the doubters. And I think Manchester City, they'd have come away from that game with a bit of complacency, thinking, oh, you've had your best ever season, we still won the league, you've given it your best shot here, you've not signed anyone, and we've still beaten you. Whereas it gave Liverpool that knowledge that we're just as good as you here. We might have been short the year before, but we can build on this. And it has that likeness, doesn't it? That whenever it's the Manchester City. And you just don't really have that with Arsenal, whereas we would have done, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. They're in the position that Liverpool were in 5-10 years ago when they were building. So it's a big chance for them to see how much progression they're making under Arteta. It would have been a different case for Liverpool, I think, 18 months ago before they started winning trophies. Now they've got the taste for them. They've got this winner's mentality. It's going to be a case for them just where they left off. And it's something they're going to need to do going into the new season, having won the league last year, because they know that they need to keep it going, show that the very best against everyone they play. But it's those where it use it, it's glorifyingly. It's all about minutes in the legs of the players. If they win, it's another sign, it's another statement that they are the team to beat in the season ahead.
Yeah, certainly one to watch and everything like that. It is tomorrow at Wembley. Let's get then into our team selections. Gorst, you said right at the top, it feels like we're back to the normal podcast routine on a Friday, press conference before it, the podcast in the afternoon, and now we welcome back the team selections. And Klopp was asked about team news ahead of the game, and of course Jordan Henderson and Trent Alexander-Arnold of maybe that first choice 11 don't look like they'll make this one.
Yeah, well, Henderson definitely won't. He doesn't restart training with the team until Monday, I think. Maybe even Sunday if they've got a training session. Alexander-Arnold's hit and miss. I mean, I was told, was it the week before last, that he was kind of working to get fit for this game tomorrow. Wasn't exactly too positive in his injury update, was he? So I think they might err on the side of caution with him and Nico Williams comes in. Other than that, I'd still expect it to be fairly standard back forward. Alan Gomez on Dyke, who's fine from nasty off to the head, and Andy Robertson on the left.
Yeah, Dan, what are your thoughts? Nico Williams then slotting into that right back role with the rest of the back five, as it were, in place?
I think so. I mean, bearing in mind Trent had a minute of season-friendly action yet, I think it'd just be unthinkable that Klopp would throw him straight in at Wembley against a side like Arsenal. And Nico's done really, really well. Brian Giggs earlier this week, he got his first senior international Welsh call-up this week, and Ryan Giggs was saying how impressed he's been with him and how pleased he is, because there was a suggestion he could possibly defect to play for England, but how pleased he was that Nico seems to have hung his hat on the Welsh Dragons hook. And I look forward to seeing him play, because he likes to get a put, he can go tackling, and he looks really promising.
A topic for another pod maybe, Theo, but does it show that Liverpool maybe are a touch like still in defence? If you thought maybe you could put Gomez to right back, Atiba still undergoing his own rehab during pre-season, they don't really have any other option than the back four we've laid out, do they?
Not massively, but they've got a lot of talented youngsters that Jurgen Klopp has put faith in, and more often than not, ones that he keeps in the squad deserve being kept in the squad. That's why Nico Williams is there. He'll be starting tomorrow, you'd imagine, and why say Yasser Larouci barely got a sniff last year, and he'll be moving on. Liverpool look at them in training, they see the ability, the decisions of the future on who's got the talent to be part of this first team squad. And it's not just sentimentality to have a couple of kids involved. It's because they believe they can make a real impact. And Nico Williams has, ever since he's had his first opportunities, he's really impressed everyone whenever he's played. He's had a couple of iffy moments, but you'd expect that for a young player. We've seen the exact same with Trent a couple of years ago. Tomorrow, if he starts, will be a huge test for him, because you think, well, Arsenal probably have Aubameyang on the left wing. You're not going to face against a more formidable, where are you, as a young fullback? But he's going to be full of confidence, having his first international call-up. Now he's got a chance to play at Wembley. He's won a few trophies already in his young Liverpool career, but this will be a first chance for him to really make impact and actually play full 90 minutes. And it'll be interesting to see what he can do. If you go through the rest of the defence, I'd imagine we'll see Tsimikas make his debut just to give him his debut, but that won't be to start. There's no need to really rotate up when it is at this time as being the curtain raiser. It is another pre-season friendly to get the energy in the legs, so it'll be a second half substitute. And the centre-back options, Liverpool, we've seen the youngsters in pre-season. Phillips has done well, so it'll be a chance for Jurgen if he wants to bring one of them on or have them on the bench to have them as part of the squad to see if they really can be a member of this team for the season ahead, or if he will need to dive into the transfer market for another centre-back before early October.
Yeah, certainly. Of course, Jurgen Klopp was asked about Virgil van Dijk. We should mention, said he doesn't look good, but there's not anything to do with the injury. That's obviously the cut he took to the face. And also just wanted to get your then maybe on the mid-3 for Liverpool.
I don't think Liverpool are really in a position to kind of rest and rotate and throw out appearances for players who aren't play a significant part of the season. So I think it'll be fairly straightforward. I think it'll be Wijnaldum. I think Fabinho, and obviously without Jordan Henderson and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, then you look at Naby Keita.
Fair enough. Dan, do you agree with that, or are you looking maybe at James Milner, that steady Eddie experienced player who could come into that midfield 3?
It's interesting because, that 3 that started, I think I'm right in terms the 3 that started against Salzburg in midweek. Yeah. And, they didn't entirely cover themselves in glory. Now, obviously, it's a different game. It's a different, I think I'm right in saying Liverpool actually trained on the morning before the match, didn't they, against Salzburg? And obviously, they kind of put the paces. So, I think that to some degree can account for a little bit of the chasing that they got in the first half. It's a 50-50 one, really. I think it would maybe be Fabinho or I would see Keita certainly given his head, because I think he potentially can provide that link between the midfield and the attack and has the opportunity to kind of build on his progress in recent times. I probably would keep it as it is with Fabinho and Wijnaldum. But James Milner, I think, will have a huge part to play for Liverpool this season, and may well have a big role to play tomorrow. You said it many times, but there's very few better first subs you can have in a game than Milner. No matter what the state of the game is, he will always be able to read the situation and kind of tailor his performance what the team requires.
Yeah, certainly. Well, Theo, let you have your say on the midfield and also what forward 3 you go with. I think there's probably no prizes for guessing how Jurgen Klopp's going to line up that forward 3.
Yeah, with the midfield, I think it's pretty much what the two have said. I would potentially like to see Curtis Jones given a game, but at the same time, the way you're choosing your midfield is going to be a statement about the rest of the season, I feel. So say Wijnaldum didn't start, you'd imagine that means he might be moving on for the end of the window. James Milner, he's a good one to have off the bench just because if it goes to penalties, that's a 1-0 head start, isn't it, in a shootout? You just know he's going to score. Naby Keita, he needs to grab every opportunity he gets. So impressive following the restart. I see no reason to change things up by dropping him out when he's got a bit of momentum and he's making a difference. So those are the obvious 3. And then the front 3. You could give Brewster a game, but over the course of this, if he's at Liverpool or not, it is going to be the traditional 3 up front, and he's going to have to be coming in as a substitute in games if he's still on the books. So, Salah, Firmino, Mane.
Anybody argue with that, or anybody want to give Brewster a go from the start?
No arguments.
No. It's a trophy. It's there to be won. They haven't really clicked yet, the front 3, have they? But it's only a matter of time. And I think they actually probably need the minutes together.
Right. And in terms of score predictions, I'll kick things off 2-0 Liverpool, I think.
That's very optimistic for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Traitorous gunner.
Well, I have to be a realist.
2-1 Liverpool.
3-1.
2 Liverpool.
We'll have to see how that does play out. We'll be back on Monday, of course, with the next edition of the Blood Red podcast. Don't forget, post-game will be with you on the Blood Red podcast feed on Saturday evening after the game at Wembley. We will be back on Monday, as I say. If you can give us a rating or review wherever it is you listen to the podcast, or go and find our YouTube channel on the Blood Red YouTube page. Subscribe and tell mates about it too. That'd be more than appreciated. But from myself, Guy Clarke, Dan Kay, Theo Squires, and Paul Gorst, thanks for your time and your company. It's bye for now.